Hi, and welcome to my review of derivatives of polynomial functions. And as in all my reviews, you can treat it as a quiz. You can give your mark for each question, total up the marks on each page, and when you're finished, total up the pages, and is that a 53? Put the number over 53 and divide 53 into the numerator and get a decimal, move it 2 places to the right to get a percent. Let's see how well you're going to do on your review. Number 1, f of x equals 6x plus 2. This is find f prime, that's the derivative using the definition of a derivative, or some people call it first principle. Well, the definition is f prime is the limit as h approaches 0 of the f of x plus h minus the f of x all over h. And the limit as h approaches 0, f of x plus h, so I put x plus h here, so I got 6 times x plus h plus 2 minus the f of x, which is 6x plus 2 all over h. And we keep simplifying the limit as h approaches 0, and we simplify this expression, so we get 6x plus 6h plus 2, and when we subtract, we add on the opposite or multiply by -1, we get negative 6x minus 2 over h. And let's go up here, and this is the limit as h approaches 0, and this is 0, and that's a 0, so I get 6h over h, and that's the limit as h approaches 0. The h is canceled, I get a 6, and this is the limit as h approaches 0 on a constant, and the answer is just 6. When you say a constant, that anywhere on the horizontal line, no matter what the value of x, the value is 6. So if you have 6, then give yourself a mark for the definition, give yourself for simplifying for 6, and give yourself a mark for 6. 3 marks altogether. Number 2, find y prime for each. So here's what y is, and what's y prime? Y prime is the derivative. The derivative of a constant is 0. Give yourself a mark. The derivative of a linear is -4. Give yourself a mark. Derivative of 3x squared, 3 times 2 is 6, and the exponent goes down by 1. Give yourself a mark. And 3 times 4 over 3 is a -4x squared. Give yourself a mark. And 2x to the 4th, 2 times 4 is 8x cubed. Give yourself a mark. Number 3, find dy dx of each. So dy dx is the same as doing dx on each side. And when we do the derivative of dx of the y, we get dy dx. So the derivative of 3x squared is 6x. Derivative of a -4x is -4. The derivative of a constant is 0. Give yourself a mark. And again, we're going to do dx on each side. And here we go. So that gives us the derivative of 3 times 5 over 3 is 5, and it's x squared. And the 2's cancel, so I get a plus 7x. And the derivative of 6x is plus 6. The derivative of a constant is 0. Give yourself a mark. 10 for that page. Hopefully everything is going well. You understand what I've shown you. Number 4, find d dx on this expression. So this is the derivative in terms of x. So we get -2 times 4 is -8x cubed. 2 times 3 over 2 is 3x. Derivative of a linear is just 7. If you have that, give yourself a mark. The slope of a tangent to a polynomial function is the blank of the function at x equals c. And the answer is derivative. So if you have the derivative there, remember you can pause the video and work out these answers first. Give yourself a mark. Pause the video and answer each question before if you wish. The slope of the tangent to f of x equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 1 in terms of x. The derivative is f prime x. Again, 3 times 2 is 6x. Derivative of negative 4x is negative 4. Derivative of constant is 0. So if you have that, give yourself a mark. Find the value of the slope to this cubic polynomial at x equals negative 2. So let's do the derivative. Derivative is y prime. And again, the 3's cancel, so I get a negative 4x squared. The 2's cancel, so I get an x squared. So that's the derivative. And we want to get the derivative at x equals negative 2. So y prime is the slope of the tangent, and we got it at negative 2. So we put negative 2 in the place of x, and that gives us the value. This is just x here, so that's just an x, okay? My mistake. 2 times a half is 1, and I forgot to take off so that's just an x. So we square first. That's a 4, and negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 minus 2, and that gives us negative 18. So the slope of the tangent to this cubic at negative 2 is negative 18. And if you did the derivative correctly, give yourself a mark. If you got negative 18, give yourself a mark. Number 8, find the equation of the tangent to this quartix at x equals 1. So the derivative is f prime x. And 4 times 4 is 16x cubed. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24x squared. 6 times 2 is 12, and it's an x. So we want it at 1. So the f prime of x is 1 is 16 1 cubed minus 24 1 squared plus 12 with a 1. And 1 to any power is always 1. So that's a 16. Negative 24. 1 squared is 1. And 12 times 1 is 12. When we add that up, we will get, that adds up to be 28. That adds up to be 4. So that's the slope. So if that's the slope, the derivative is the slope, so we can call that m as the slope. So y equals mx plus b. So we got y equals 4x plus b. So we want at x is 1. So when we put 1 in, so the f of 1 is that we're going to put 1 in the main equation. So it's 4, 1 to the 4th, negative 8, 1 cubed, plus 6, 1 squared. Again, any power of 1 is 1, so that's a 4, negative 8, plus 6. And that comes out to be a 2, I believe. Yep. Negative 8, 10, negative 8 is 2. So that's the point. That's the point of when x is 1, y is 2. So we take this value of x and y and sub it in the equation. Y is 2, x is 1. That gives us the value of b. So 2, 4 plus b. So b is 2 minus 4. So b is negative 2. So y equals mx plus b. So y equals the slope we found to be 4x, and b is negative 2. So that's the equation of the tangent to this quartix at 1. 5 marks. So distribute the marks with the derivative is 1. If you got a slope of 4 or 1, if you got the point 1, 2, you get 1. If you got negative 2, you get 1. If you got the equation, you get 1, 5 altogether. And the total for this page is 10. Hopefully everything is going well. Let's continue. Again, is the review in order of all the videos I did in this section. Find the point or points where the slope of the tangent to this curve is 12. So the slope of the tangent is the derivative. So y prime equals, so that's a 3x squared. Multiply, 2's cancel, I get a 3x and the derivative of a linear is -6. Derivative of constant is 0. So this is the slope of the tangent, and the slope of the tangent is 12. So that means that 3x squared minus 3x minus 6 equals 12. The derivative is this trinomial is equal to 12. So we get 3x squared minus 3x minus 6 minus 12 equal to 0. And we got a quadratic, so we simplify. And I see that 3 is a GCF, so take the 3 out, and I get x squared minus x minus 6. And as a quadratic, see if we can factor it. 2 brackets. X squared is x and x. Factors of 6 to give me a 1 is 3 and 2. And its product is -6, sum is -1, so it's a -3 plus 2. So that means that 3 can't be 0, so x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So x is 3, or x is -2. So the points, so let's pick where x equals 3. So let's put 3 into this expression. Where the tangent is 12, so we put 3 in. And we go put 3 in here now, so I got y equals 3 cubed minus 3 over 2, 3 squared, minus 6, 3 minus 8. So that's a 27. And this is 9, so that's 27 over 2. And that's -18 minus 8. So when we add all that up, that's 13.5. So that's 13.5 minus 18 minus 8. So it's a -12.5. Okay. So this is the point 3, -12.5. So that's 1 point. And now we have where x is -2. So x is -2. So y equals, we're putting a -2 in the place of x now. So here we go. Take our time. So we're subbing in a -2 in the place of x. Same as we put in 3 in the place of x here. So that's -2 cubed, -8. And that's square first, it's a 4. 2 into 4 goes 2, so that's -6. And that's a 12. And that's -8. So that gives us, all together when you add it up, that's 12, 16, 24. So it's a, just make sure here, that's 14, it's -10. So the point is -2, -10. So that's the 2 points where the slope of the tangent is 12. And if you did the derivative correctly, you get a mark. If you came up with these two values right here, you get a mark each. If you subbed them in and came up with this point, subbed them in and came up with this point. So there's 5 altogether. That question. Number 10, find the vertex of y equals -2x squared plus 12x plus 1. And the derivative, the vertex, I could do, but I'm going to use the derivative. I could do -b over 2a to get the x coordinate and plug it in. But we're going to get the vertex by doing the derivative. The derivative is a -4x plus 12, and that's a 0. So the derivative is when the slope of the tangent is 0. So -4x squared plus 12 equals 0. So in a parabola, this is a parabola, and at the vertex of a parabola, we have a horizontal line, and that horizontal line has a slope of 0. So we let the derivative equal to 0 because the derivative is the slope, and we work that out for x. We get x to be 3. And so now that's the x coordinate of vertex, so we plug that into the equation. X is 3. And put 3 in. That'll give us the y value. 9 square first, so that's -18. 36 minus 1. So 18 plus 1 is 19. So the vertex x is 3 and y is 19. 5 marks. A mark for doing the derivative, mark for making it equal to 0 because the derivative is equal to 0, a mark for the 3. Plugged it in to get 19, you get the point. You get a mark 5 altogether. And we have 10 for that page. Hopefully everything is going well and you understand what the unit is about. Number 11, find where the slope of y equals negative x squared plus 3x is decreasing. So decreasing means that the slope of, this is a parabola, so the slope of the parabola is less than 0. So let's do the derivative first. Derivative is negative 2x plus 3. Now, decreasing is when y prime is less than 0. So that means we'll make negative 2x plus 3 less than 0. So decreasing is when the slope is negative, less than 0. So negative 2x is less than negative 3. Divide by negative 2. And we have x 3 over 2. But when we divide by negative, the inequality changes from a less than to a greater than. So for all values of x on this parabola, where remember the vertex is at 3 over 2. So if it's greater than 3 over 2, then it will be decreasing. The slope will be negative. And so you get a mark for the derivative, a mark for that expression, and a mark for solving that 3 altogether. Number 12, explain using y prime, which is the derivative, y1, 1 comma negative 2 is the maximum point of this. Notice this is a parabola because it's a square. So again, the maximum point is the highest point, and we want to use the derivative. Remember, we can get the maximum point by getting his vertex. True, but we got to explain it. So let's do y prime, which is negative 2x plus 2. Derivative of negative x squared is negative 2x. Derivative of 2x is 2. Derivative of a constant is 0. So this is negative 2x plus 2 equals 0. We go y prime is equal to 0. So that's the maximum point of the parabola is when the vertex at the slope of the tangent is equal to 0. So negative 2x equals negative 2. Divided by negative 2, x is 1. So what we have a 1. So if we look at it from this point of view, we have a 1 on the line. So this is y prime. So we make y prime 1. So at 1 we have a 0. So let's put in a 2 and let's put in a 0. So what happens is that this is a line at 2. So or at 1. So let's put a 2 in to this expression. So if we put a 2 in here, a 2 gives us negative 4 plus 2. A 2 is a negative. Put in a 1 gives us a 0. Put a 0 in here and I get a positive. So that's a positive. So that means that on this side of the 1, we got a negative. We have a negative slope. Negative slope goes this way. On this side, remember this is y prime, the slope. And this is a positive, so a positive goes up to the right. So notice that if you have at 1, you have a 0 slope where the tangent is, where the vertex is at 1, and negative 2. Well, why is that a maximum point? Well, first of all, 2, it's occurring at 1, so what I got to check is that I had to put 1 in to verify that I get the negative 2. So when x is 1, that's the x coordinate of the vertex. Put it in, and I get 1 squared 1, negative 1, plus 2 minus 3. So that's a negative 4 and 2, so it's negative 2. So the vertex of the parabola is 1, negative 2. And that point, that's the point right there on the slope. And the slope on the left side is negative. Slope on the right side is positive. Because y prime is less than 0, which means is a positive, sorry, my mistake. Y prime is that's sloping as positive. Y prime is greater than 0 on this side, and y prime is less than 0 on this side. That's a negative. So this is a maximum. And so that's how I would explain. You do the derivative, and you get the 1, and this is the point that's occurring at, and then you put it on the number line, and you work out the values of the numbers, negative and positive, and that's why it's a maximum point, because it's negative slope, positive slope, making it a maximum point. 5 marks altogether. Number 13, graph the derivative of this. It's a quadratic, it's a parabola. The derivative is the slope. So if this is the parabola, its derivative, you work out its derivative, which is you drop a perpendicular to this point. So this, whatever the vertex of this parabola is, so this vertex is 2 and negative 3. So that means that this point right here has the same x coordinate. So that's going to be 2, 0. So on this side, that's a positive. The slope of this parabola is positive. So that means the derivative of a quadratic, which is x squared, is a linear. So since that's a plus, slope is plus, that moves. There's the derivative. There's a plus on this side. It's a minus on this side because the slope is a minus. So it comes down below here. So again, the derivative of a quadratic, which is x squared, is a linear. And there's the line that represents the derivative of this parabola. So if I knew the equation of this parabola, and I did the derivative of that, I would come up with this line, whose y-intercept would be down here. But I'm not worried about it. I just wanted to graph the derivative, because I don't want the, I could find the equation of this parabola if I knew more. I know what the vertex is, but I don't know what the a value is. So I'm just saying this is the derivative based on the value of x here is 2. So this value is 2, and there's the slope. I'm not worried about what the slope is. So if you have that correctly, give yourself 2 marks. So it's 10 for that page. Let's continue. Find where the slope of this cubic is increasing. This is the cubic, so let's do the derivative. Y prime, the slope of is increasing. So that means that the slope is increasing, so the slope is positive. So let's do the derivative of y prime. 3 times 1/3 is 1, so that's x squared. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2x. And negative 3x, the derivative is negative 3. Derivative of constant is 0. So the slope is increasing. So what we have, the slope increasing, that means the slope of the derivative is greater than 0. That means x squared minus 2x minus 3 is greater than 0. And this is a quadratic, so I got 2 values. So let's see if we can factor this. And we have an x and an x. Factors of 3 are 3 and 1. Product is negative. Sum is negative. So it's a negative 3 and a positive 1. So that means we have 2 critical values. And the critical values are x is 3 and x is negative 1. They're the critical values on the number line. Remember now, this is for y prime, which is the slope. So we have a negative 1 and we have a 3. So what we pick is greater than 0 is, we're going to pick the positive when we're finished. So we take a number on the right, 4. Number in the middle is 0. And number on the left is negative 2. So if I take a 4 and put in here, 4 gives us a plus. 4 gives us a plus. So a plus times a plus is a plus. Put a 0 in. Put a 0 here, I get a negative. Put a 0 here, I get a positive. So negative and a positive when I multiply is a negative. Put a negative 2 here, I get a negative. Put a negative 2 here, and I get a negative. So there's a negative and a negative, that becomes a positive. So increasing is greater than 0. Increasing means you have a plus slope. So that means the plus is here, and the zeros are at -1 and 3. But we want it with pluses, so that means x is less than -1, and is also increasing where x is greater than 3. So we can do that, or if you want, you could go bracket, -1, negative infinity, open bracket, and we can go union, open at 3 going to infinity. So you can do either or. So it's 4 marks. You did the derivative, you get a mark. If you did this expression, you get a mark. If you worked out these two values like this, and you got your marks, and there's your solutions, so 4 marks altogether. Number 15, find the minimum point of this cubic. Y equals -2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 12x. The minimum point. So again, the minimum point is the lowest point in the graph. Again, you got a cubic. So to get the minimum, let's do the derivative. Y prime equals -6x squared minus 6x plus 12. See, -6, yep, a decrease, -6, decrease 1, and derivative of linear is that. So a minimum point, so we will look at y prime is equal to 0, so -6x squared equals 0. Now we can take out the -6 outside of, and that's an x squared plus x minus 2, and it's factorable. So we have an x and an x. Factors of 2 are 2 and 1. Product is negative, sum is positive, so we have +2, -1. So the values of x, the critical values of x that gives us 0, are -2 and 1. So let's do a number line. And we have a -2 and we have a 1. So this is, let's look at, I could get, what I'm going to do is decide which one of these is going to be the right answer. One of them is going to give me a positive, one is going to give me a negative, or maximum point and minimum point. So let's see. Let's take a 2. In between -2 and 1 is 0, and this is a -3. So if I take 2 and plug it here, a 2 going in this expression, 2 gives me, that's a negative. 2 go here is positive, and the 2 going in here is positive. So negative, positive, positive, that's a negative. Putting a 0 in. If I put a 0 here in this expression, I get negative, positive, negative. Negative times a positive times a negative is a positive. And if I put a -3 in this expression, notice I'm just checking the signs to see if they're going to be plus or minuses, because the plus or minuses tells me about the slope. Put a -3 in this expression, I get a negative. Put a -3 here, I get a negative. Put a -3 here, I get a negative. And 3 negatives gives me a negative when I multiply. So now, based on the -2 gives me a 0, 1 gives me a 0, so the slope is a negative. So a negative slope in relation to the 1 is going like that. This cubic, that's the slope is on this side is negative. Positive on the right side of 1, so it's going like this. And with a 2, it's going to be negative. So a negative is going this way at the 2. So a minimum point is the lowest point. So this slope is negative and a positive. So this is the minimum point. And this is the maximum point, the highest point. So maximum has a slope of positive and a negative. A minimum has the slope on the left as negative, slope on the right is positive. So that's the maximum. And this is the minimum. So the minimum occurs at x is -2. So we take y and we plug the -2 in for x. We plug the -2 in for x. And so when we work that out, we get -8. We get a cube first. That's 6, oops, almost a 16. And that's again, I got to square first, 4, so it's negative 12. And that's negative 24. And when you add all that up, you get, that's a negative 4, that's a positive 4, so that's a negative 20. So, when x is negative 2, we have a negative 20. So that's the minimum point, 6 marks. And if I put the 1 in, this expression, whatever value I get, when I put 1 in, I get a point, but it would be the maximum. But I wanted the minimum, so I didn't have to do the 1. Didn't have to put the 1 in the expression here. Only had to do the minimum. Now you could do both, but I was thinking about when I did the slope, I would get the minimum one and just only work at one of the points. I didn't have to get the 2 of them. And there's 6 marks for this, so if you did the derivative correctly, you get 1 mark. If you factored it correctly, you get another mark. If you picked up the values, you get another mark. If you did the table, pluses and minuses, you get another mark. Then if you know that this is the minimum because that's a negative slope and that's a positive slope, you get a mark. And then if you worked out the point, you get another mark. 6 marks altogether, 10 for that page. And one more page to do. Ends off the videos on this little unit. Graph the derivative of this. Notice that this is a cubic. It has 1, 2, 3. It cuts through at the x, 3x intercept. So this is a cubic. So you work out the derivative of this by taking this peak point here, which is a minimum, and dropping perpendicular to the x-axis. So wherever the x value right here is, this is what this x value will be on the x-intercept. We got a peak point here, so we drop a perpendicular down to this point. Again, whatever the value of x is at this point, then this is the value of x here. Now, we got that done. So now, the slope on the right side of this value, this is a positive slope. So what we're now doing is that I'm going to use a different color, red. I'm going to do a different color. So let's make sure I'm using the red and doing a good job here. Trying to do a good job. So this is red. So at this point, whatever this x values is, there it is there. So on this side is positive. So that means that that's the slope of this curve is represented by this plus above. Now, notice over here, the slope of this curve is a plus. So let's go up above, like this. And notice that from here to here, the slope of this curve is negative. So there it is, negative. So that means it's down below. So we come down like this. What happens, again, think about it. Just think about it. This is a cubic. So let me use my pen. This is a cubic. This is y equals x cubed. The derivative of a cubic is y prime is 3x squared. So if this is a cubic, the derivative is a quadratic, and a quadratic is a parabola shape. So again, there's the parabola. So the derivative is the red shape, the parabola. And halfway between whatever these 2 points are right here, whatever these 2 points are, halfway between these 2 points is the x-coordinate of the vertex. So if halfway is right here, that means that this is the vertex of this parabola. And we'll learn more about this point coming up later on, this point here. So we got a cubic, derivative is a quadratic, and there's the quadratic. So at this point, we have a positive slope, and in between here, from here to here is negative, so there it's coming on down like this. And here is a positive slope, so notice this is y prime. This is the quadratic, and which is a parabola. And give yourself 3 marks if you have that explained correctly. And when you're finished, total up all the pages, put your score over 53, and get a percentage, and hopefully that percentage is 100%. So that ends the unit on derivative of a polynomial function. And like all my videos, if you like my video, click on the like button, click on the subscribe button. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Just one word. Thanks for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.